My name is Roger Lee. I'm with Ironworks Speed and Custom in Bakersfield, California. Today we're here with the #1 Legacy Series Chevelle. I've got Nick Vasquez here, and today we're going to go for a ride and go over the details of what makes this a Legacy Series production Chevelle.
So what engine's in this one, drivetrain?
This one has an LT4 that's completely stock, no overdrive pulley, no big blower, nothing like that, with a 10-speed automatic.
And running a 9-inch obviously in the back.
Yeah, it runs a Gear Effects 9-inch that is all micro polished and dyno tested for noise, no break-in, for heat whatever it's called, dispensation, to get rid of the heat for long periods of time on the highway. So the oil comes off there to make it super quiet. It's probably like the most expensive 9-inch you can buy.
And this is not a 9-inch straight axle because this one's running the IFS or IRS.
Yeah, this runs the IRS.
So what has been upgraded for that to work?
It's in this car. It's a Speedtech IRS with just the production unit they have with upgraded CVs. So it's we wound up doing our own custom valving on the shocks.
Okay.
We got with JJ at Ultimate Performance and worked on a few things, and have been kind of going back and forth on just overall shock valving, because every road is different, so you don't really have like a track to tune it towards. And so we've really been working to make it the best that we can, and it's really good.
And when you say best that you can, what's your goal? Are you like, obviously we're not trying to set it up for track, you're setting it up for driving. Yeah,
I'm hoping it can just kind of be an all-star or a good at most everything, because obviously you're coming up to intersections that have dirt in the road, and you're going to go over railroad tracks, and you're going to go over railroad tracks at different angles and different speeds, and I just want to make this thing where it's as pleasing as possible to drive, so that it's comfortable, so that it's fun.
And then if someone wanted to go to a track day, possibly make some adjustments with the shocks and get a little bit more out of it? Yeah, you could just up the spring rates and work on a more aggressive valving. You know, my intention here is that the car would have a lot of forward bite, and it wouldn't be squirrely. It wouldn't be difficult to drive. It'd be comfortable to drive. Even in the wonderful roads that we have in California, it's still pretty good, considering California. But on the highway, it's going to be good, whether it's a new highway or an old highway, whether it's a concrete highway or an asphalt highway. These cars have been in multiple states on road tours and just testing and stuff. I mean, this car's got almost 2,300 miles on it as it sits right now. And so we've just really tried to make the driving experience the best we can. Offhand, what kind of tire pressure is on this one?
I believe it's low 30s, 32, 34.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's really harsh when you hit stuff.
No, it's part of it's because we've really developed a spring compression percentage to define where we want the ride characteristics based on the car, and we try to set these cars up at 21%.
What's like compared to other setups that are normally seen with these cars, whether it's factory, chassis or aftermarket chassis, what are some of the things that you're combating against in this car?
I would say just packaging issues. We wind up making our own, with the Speedtech one, we wind up making our own transmission crossmember to tuck the exhaust up further. I had to deal with some other issues of getting the exhaust away from the seats because we dropped the seats down 2.5 inches from the stock floors. Plus, these seats that you're sitting in are power seats, which are known to be an inch or inch and a half taller maybe for the power mechanism. Plus they're extra foamy because they're very close to the 2016 to 2020 Camaro that they come out of. But that's part of the ride quality package, is just the seat foam.
So in a typical stock car, stock floor plan with a stock chassis, obviously too, I mean, well, not just so much the chassis, but the floor pan itself, this seat configuration with you sitting in the driver's seat, you'd be touching the headliner.
Oh yeah, I would be touching the headliner, and that would, in this seat, I don't even think I could fit in it. If you could put this seat in there, I think a 5 foot tall guy would be sitting way up tall in the car. For me, I mean, I'm 6'6", and I mean, I have this seat almost all the way back. I could lean it back a little bit more, but it's, you know, and the process for these seats really started with the customer who was like, I don't really want power seats to adjust it. I just want power seats that if I've been driving for a while, I could kick up the nose a little bit more or slide the seat fore and aft, just a 1/4 of an inch adjustment just to change the pressure points.
So that long haul adjustability, so then you can fine tune depending on if you're just kind of getting cramped up and what have you.
Yeah, if you just want to change your position or, you know, do those types of things. And me as a tall guy, like the back of the seat, the back of my legs hit the seat. And that's not usually the case, especially in stock floored, stock seat Chevelles. Because usually in most of the custom cars we're building, we're getting rid of the seat springs and putting solid sheet metal plates in it. And then we are foaming the seats and putting as stiff a foam as you can based on the weight of the driver. Because a fat guy is going to need a different seat foam than a skinny guy. And so with this, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds.
So you're basically sitting about what you'd be sitting at in height-wise if you were in a modified seat that's just hammered out with no foam, no spring, like barely any. You're achieving all the extra creature comforts.
I bet it's a little lower.
Yeah.
So just 'cause, I mean, I've driven that black 70 Chevelle thousands of miles, and my legroom is not the same. This seat is much further back. I mean, we could measure the OG black Chevelle and see where the back of the seat to the front of the back seat is in dimensions, but this is much further. There's more room in this than there is in my 2500 GMC.
Now, Greg owns that car.
Greg owns that car.
And Greg owns his car.
Greg owns this car.
And what has been the feedback comparing the cars being from one to the other from his point of view?
Well, the valving is so good in this that the shocks are now off of the black one to have them valve the same.
Yeah.
First and foremost. Other than that, I mean, you're just comparing 10 years of innovation. We're currently, which I would say is probably based on the fact of this, we're adding a little bit more horsepower or bottom end torque to the other car currently with a Don Hardy engine, and we're putting a lot of the interior stuff that's in this car in that car. The door panels are kind of shot from just the way they attach and things that we don't, you know, that we use different upholstery guys that don't do that anymore, and just the way things work.
And that black car, the 70 Chevelle with the vinyl top, red interior, that was built back in what?
2011, no, not that long. I think it was on the cover of Hot Rod in 13.
Okay, so early 2010 range.
Yep.
And technology has drastically changed due to a lot of just technology being introduced in these cars, in the car building world, and let alone customers pushing the envelope with the builders, financing, you know, the push and wanting more out of them. It's just collaborated into where we're at now with what we can achieve with these cars.
Yeah, and Greg's a huge guy that loves just quality work and loves to see progression of things getting better. Like, he's just a tuner. If there's a new power steering pump that's going to change the feel, road feel, he's all about giving it a try. And if there's a new set of, one of his Camaros, we just changed the shocks to the latest, greatest the Roadster Shop now offers to, upgrade that setup, because he's just always interested in, he just enjoys the driving experience to just keep pushing that further and further with different cars that he has. But he's also allowed us to compare notes, because he's got Camaros, and like you said, this is his second Chevelle, and you can really compare things, because you can take one car and work on it, and then you can drive it and test it, and then you can compare it to something else, which comparison is the biggest thing that leads to change. You're not just like, man, that new chassis is really good, and I don't really know why.
So in comparison, let's put this into a little bit of a different twist. comparing this setup where we're at now compared to, let's just say, a new Camaro, a new, only a couple year old Camaro that's got some suspension changes to it and whatnot, are we around the same ride quality handling, or are we better?
I haven't driven too many of the Camaros, but I have taken 3 guys for rides that own ZL1 Camaros.
Okay.
And they all say this feels like the sport version of their Camaro.
Okay.
So, I've built cars that ride stiffer than this because we want them to perform better in the autocross and do that stuff. On this car, like I said, I'm just trying to make it where it's fun to drive. I can have one hand on the wheel, you can let go of the wheel and hit bumps, and you can drive it all around. Like, you just don't feel like it takes a lot of effort or focus to drive the car. Yeah. And I feel like that's what GM tries to do, and I feel like we're trying to do the same thing with this. I just want it to be fun.
Yeah.
I don't want it where every time you get on it you gotta chase it down the road and it's squirrely, and every time you shift gears it's changing lanes. And I just want it where it's just point and shoot. It goes fast, it's very comfortable. Your wife would want to ride in it because it's not too rough. It's just loud enough when you get on it, and it's fast enough because it just never, like with the 10-speed transmission, it feels like it never lets go of the torque against the tire.
Yeah, so less fatigue equaling longer distance enjoyment.
Yeah.
We're going over these railroad tracks right now.
This will be our second set of railroad tracks in this discussion.
Yeah. And a lot of rough road.
Yeah, so we are now on the edge of town in the farm fields. We are... Now we're going from rough roads to good roads that are dirty.
So let's talk about the transmission. It's a 10-speed.
10-speed automatic. I have it set up with the paddle shifters, so you can you hear it rev match as you want to downshift. That was an undisclosed speed in Mexico.
Let's talk about tires.
So these are Michelin Pilot Sport Cup R's. During COVID, we were unable to get the regular Michelin Pilot Sports. So, but most tires on these cars, you get about 8,000 miles out of them anyways. But that's one of the reasons it picks up all the extra rocks. We're getting ready to go to BF Goodrich is coming out with some new Phenom tires that are going to be very similar to the Michelin Pilot Sports, and so we'll be running those exclusively.
And the tire size is readily available, or is this something that gets a little bit more selective on availability?
So the fronts, we have a 285/35, and the 35 series tire is so that it just improves ride quality a little bit over a 30 series, and then the rear is a 335/30/20.
So let's talk about the interior. What was the driving factor behind this whole dash setup and everything that you've done on the inside of the interior? Other than the seats, obviously we talked about those, but interior-wise.
My biggest thing with the interior was to get rid of the plastic crap. Because you're married to the plastic switches that run the stock. You know, you're married to the stock wiper switches. You're married to stock headlight switches. You're just married to those kinds of things that you really have no choice. There's better products out there, and I just wanted stuff that you could paint and detail a little better than the plastic. And so I wanted it where, you know, the center console was solid. Just those things when I put my big leg up against it, it doesn't bow to one side. I didn't want it to feel flimsy.
So look, you just touched on the center console. It's nice and sturdy. Why? What makes it that way?
The first part is that we have both the outside part that's painted black is carbon fiber. So I had a mold made to develop those parts, and we machined the insert. We put a Dakota Digital AC control up here. We're waiting on the sensor for the boost sensor, and this thing will be done. Those are some new gauges we got from Dakota Digital as well to match these that integrate. They're from a Camaro, from like a 69 Camaro SS, I believe Camaro 69 Camaro SS console. And then the entire gauge cluster is very similar in size on the outside edge, but it's just machined, so it can be bolted in solid to the car. Just trying to cut down on some of the noises.
So going back to, so we'll talk about the dash here in a second, because that's all another ball of like configuration of what you guys designed on that. But this center console, it's carbon fiber, and you have it basically designed to hug the tunnel that you guys put in this car, so it's nice and sturdy. There's no gapping like you would find on some of the other like SS center consoles that are on an aftermarket tunnel and what have you. So everything is molded to your tunnel to fit nice and tight.
Yeah, because it's designed to fit down on the console, onto the trans tunnel, and then it's sucked down with the brackets in there that hold it from the side. There's a few little screws on the side that hold it to the brackets. Okay. And I just wanted it where it wasn't some cheap Chinese piece of crap. I wanted to make, as you look under here, you can see the underside of the center console door. You can see the latch. You can hear when it shuts. It doesn't sound like, 10 cents. Yeah. I wanted stuff that it's just nice. I wanted stuff where when you put, it's at a good height, where when you sit in the car, it feels comfortable to put your arm on. That's really the problem with all the aftermarket stuff that looks vintage. Yeah. So it led me down a rabbit hole that probably added a decimal point to the build to do that, because everything we wound up reproducing, I'm still trying to figure out how to reproduce this H shifter, because I just can't get the rattle out of it, the rattle that's in the latch, but that's just a OER or Classic Industries thing. Yeah. And some days it doesn't vibrate and some days it does. Yeah. And so, but we've made the dash pad out of carbon. You can hear that. It's not just some foam flimsy thing that makes in the other Chevelle we did that had a reproduction one. It goes down the road and it's, after a year it's like eek, 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 eek. And so you just slightly hear it. Those are all the things that if you turn the radio up, you're not going to hear it.
Now, is this dash pad bolted onto the dash, connected to the dash differently than what an OEM would be with the clips that?
Yeah, we put something similar with the clips, and it sits down here and just integrates into everything.
So that's the rattle, that's the noise that we're hearing, is it?
That's the stupid Chinese shifter that I need to replace.
Wow.
So there's just no way to do it yet. So the bottom section over here is the plastic from the original dash.
So this is original dash, not a reprop.
That is especially in this car, that is the original dash.
The original dash.
And then all these pieces are removable for polishing and Cerakote and powder coating to get this texture finish.
Yeah. And now let's get into what you did with the dash, because this whole section is not factory.
No, not at all. It's all aluminum. It's, starts from like a 150-pound block of aluminum. Costs, I don't know, like almost $5,000 to machine them. Like I think it takes 28 hours to machine the front and the back side.
Why did you go to that extent?
Because there's just no other way to do it in small production. I could make it out of carbon, but it's not, you're going to be similar, but then you can't polish it and get the edges right.
What's the gain other than, what's the gain? What did you gain? Because I can see that you got different vents, you got the stereo in here, you have some switches there. That is a Dakota Digital HDX gauge cluster that would go into an
that SS. Would go into a regular dash, but it just refines it. You're not dealing with painted plastic. You're not dealing with cheesy plastic stuff. I just feel like it just adds a level of classiness to the interior.
Yeah.
We have another car that we're doing right now that we're going to Cerakote that polished edges with a silver because he doesn't want it this classy.
Yeah.
And so we're working on doing that stuff of just trying to make it where it's, when you get in the car, you're like, man, this is nice.
Yeah.
You don't get in and you're like, I mean, this is cool. I want it where just the value of what you're dealing with sells it. I mean, the steering wheel that we have here, I mean, we spend a lot of time. These are all machined rings. This is a machined center section, the steering wheel cap. All this stuff is all machined to accept a paddle shifter, but that's the only paddle shifter to get the cheesy digital display. And of course, you find out that it only shows 8th gear. It doesn't register 10th gear in any car.
So it stops at 8.
It stops at 8 all the time, which is just the cheesy limitations of not being an OEM manufacturer.
Yeah.
But I can't find any GM truck that registers 10th gear either.
So there's a lot of people that are building these cars. On the interior side, they're highly modifying them. They're taking them to these interior shops and spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 building. Don't take me wrong, but they're completely starting over with the design and building something in their eyes what they want. Obviously, customized. Maybe if you want to quote it like a little bit more modern spaceship or supercar feeling inside. So people are spending money on the interior. So this is just another way to spend your money to get that OEM feel and look, but have all the nuances of today's technology.
Yeah, I mean, you're still limited by, you know, these cars have roll-up windows that seal at the top, and you're still limited by some things that are 1970 engineering that you're not going to overcome. And so I feel like we've made this thing as the best you're going to absolutely do, but I feel like some of that stuff is what makes them cool.
Yeah.
Is that there's just something about the car that's, you know, the reason why you pull up in traffic, and you could pull up in that Camaro that we were comparing this to, and you're not going to get a second look. And, you know, I had a homeless guy the other day when I was driving it around. I took my kid to school in the morning, and the homeless guy had his sign, and he came out of his drunken stupor to give me a thumbs up. Which just cracked me up.
Yeah, you know, newer cars that are modified, new school muscle, definitely has its place, and people do enjoy them. They are awesome, but a classic car is just timeless on like how many people have some type of reflection of you know, older years when they were younger, their grandfather, their father, their uncle, their friend, their high school, whatever. There's always a story when you pull up to the gas station that you hear.
Yes. I don't care what ZL1 Camaro you buy, you're not going to get the same gas station thumbs up as you are in any type of old muscle car.
Yeah. And it's, you know, not that you need that, but it definitely, it's cool that people, even though they are completely not into like owning or close to even wanting to own a car like this or whatever, but the fact that they can always resort back to an old memory in some shape or form is just pretty awesome. It's universal. The passion is universal at that point.
And that's one reason I picked the Chevelle. Like, it's amazing how, I mean, I picked it for the functional reasons of how low I can get it and the ease I can get the stance and things I want to achieve, but just everybody loves a Chevelle.
Yeah.
Like, and especially if you get them down low, man, they just look so good.
Yeah, Chevelle definitely has an iconic, you know, historically muscle car, you know, background, and do other muscle cars, you know, GTOs and Mustangs. You know, there's definitely a handful of them, but, you know, with movies and other things like that, you know, set the Chevelle a little bit. And I mean, I'm a Chevelle guy, so obviously, in my opinion, a little bit higher, but there is definitely a handful of muscle cars, and that's what, again, to introduce this Legacy series, that is what you're doing. You're building the next generation of that car. Yep.
And trying to make something that's just fun. Like, it's, yeah, you can take it to a show, and a lot of your friends are going to be like, oh, that's the coolest thing ever. And it's meant to be a nice car, but it's really meant to be fun. It's meant to be driven. I don't want to paint it so that you could, you know, win whatever car show you want to do. I want you to get bug guts on it and not worry about it. I want you to have fun in the car. I want you to use it and not be afraid to lock it up and take it to the pharmacy to pick up your prescription.
Yeah.
Or, you know, whatever you're trying to do. If you're, you know, I took some pictures a week or so ago with my daughter sitting on the front fender because this is the original paint on this car. So if you find them this way, or if you're like, hey, I just want one that's painted pretty nice and I want it nice, then we can do that too. But the intention with these cars is to make them fun. I mean, we're driving down the road at 75, 78 miles an hour on the, you know, concrete interstate and having this conversation.
Yeah, and I want to bring up something at this point, being in this car for, what, 20 minutes now, 30 minutes almost. I own a factory 1970 SS Chevelle with factory seats in it. They've been redone. They're nice and soft and cushiony, but they definitely do not feel like this, but they look like these. So these look like those seats in a sense of style and feel, but they're definitely not the same build. These feel great. Yep.
Like you, I mean, if I told you, hey, let's go to Vegas, you'd be like, oh, I'm cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that in my seats.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, they look great, but they definitely, you know, they've got a 1970s feel definitely to them. They don't jump out at you feeling comfortable, which is unfortunate. I've even talked to some upholstery guys to see about getting some bolstering in them or just something to, and everyone just says that just that seat, it just, instead of sinking a lot of money into that, just get a different seat and make it look like an SS seat.
Yeah, but it's still not going to be the same because they're going to be thinner. They're going to be, you know, so I believe that GM puts a lot of work into the foam of the selection for what they make their seats from, so that multiple people can sit in it, whether it's the 100-pound mom or the, you know, 300-pound guy.
Yeah.
And so that you can sit in them and feel comfortable over a long haul as you're just using the car.
Yeah. What are we doing? 75 right now?
78.
So this road's not perfect. Got some imperfections, and one hand on the wheel, it's not jerking around, not bouncing around.
The road's rougher than the steering input, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. And this one has an aftermarket steering column?
Yeah, it has an I Did It steering column.
And then it's also doesn't have a steering, it's got a rack and pinion in it.
Has a rack and pinion in it. That's a high quality rack and pinion. And then it has a high volume power steering pump that changes the feel at, you know, different RPMs. So we really tried to put the volume of the pump is maximized for really this speed.
Yeah.
So that the inputs aren't too big. You can make small inputs, and, you know, if I want to move over to the right side of the lane, I can move over to the right side of the lane. If I want to go around that whatever little thing in the road, I can go around the little thing in the road, and I don't have to feel like I have to put both hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to chase it. You know, there's no little gap in the middle of the steering box where it's just kind of dead in the middle. You know, you turn the wheel and the car turns. I mean, we've driven these cars. The last big trip we did Park City, Utah to Bakersfield in one day.
Wow.
And there were two guys who drove this, and I couldn't get the 72-year-old guy out of the car for the last 6 hours. And he's not a Chevy guy.
So let's talk about how this car came about. What was the state that it was in originally, and just the history of where this car came from and what it was prior to getting into this project.
Well, this particular car was an 18,000 original mile 71 Chevelle with original paint. That was probably the most pristine car I've ever started with. That it was just a basic bare bones 307 car.
Malibu 307.
Malibu 307. I believe it had a 3-speed automatic in it, and it was just a nothing car. But it had 18,000 original miles on it. This is the original paint, original vinyl top. We just took the original headliner out of it. It was almost, if it would have been anything, it would have been sacrilegious to do what we did. But now the car's, you know, it's pushing 2,300 miles, which we'll go over that today. in less than a year, considering it only had 18,000 miles in its first 70 years.
Yeah.
Or first 50 years, sorry.
Where did the car come from?
It was somewhere in New Jersey. We bought it off Bring a Trailer.
Wow. So time capsule.
Yes.
And it had original 2-barrel on it still.
2-barrel, 307.
Single exhaust.
Yep.
Wow. And you guys kept the whole vibe and feeling. You didn't change anything on the outside, as in, like, you still have Malibu emblems on it.
Yep.
Still a Malibu hood with no SS Cal or anything like that.
Yeah, because it's all original paint, so we kept all that stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. You want to talk a little bit about this fuel setup here?
We just got tired of filling it from down here and having to get like this and hold it and spit it in there. And we wanted to put a fuel tank in the car that didn't hang so low underneath the car.
So what is the difference that we're looking at here?
We just made all this stuff that bolts to the trunk latch, and then the fuel tank, because it goes in the car like this. That's just a 3D printed panel to protect the pump and the sending unit if you put stuff in here. We're developing the carpet kit right now for the rear, but just trying to keep it where it's just easy to use, but also you can see underneath the car. So
for people that are not familiar with this fuel tank drops in from
right here,
the trunk.
From right here in the trunk, and goes underneath instead of being underneath the trunk floor.
And that's due to the fact of the IRS.
Yes. You could do it in a solid axle car. You just have to completely change the floor.
And typically people don't do that, though.
No, they don't. But when we were doing this, it wasn't that much bigger, and I just hate the way the stock tanks hang way down.
Right. So you're getting more ground clearance. Not that you really need it, but just aesthetically wise,
Aesthetics.
It just looks, yeah. How
71.
How many gallons is this tank?
I think it's 24.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys for coming along today as we break down the details of what's in these Legacy Series Chevelles. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact us through the email on our website, and we'd be glad to answer any questions for you on providing you with a Chevelle, helping you find a Chevelle, or if you're just looking to have a custom car built. Thank you very much.